Hi everyone, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead and Maria Tells the Story. So, a lot of things were happening yesterday, and the very ending, the sheriff came and he picked up DJ. He said they hadn't found Alfred, but they did find something else. So, let's go start the story. Chapter 10, A Clue to Alfred's Disappearance. Corporal Brackett parked his patrol unit up behind the little store and turned off the siren. He ran around the front of the patrol unit and jerked DJ's door open. Upstairs, fast! The boy followed the uniformed officer up the steep stairs to the Milfords' front room. Alfred's parents were waiting there. They began excitedly asking DJ so many fast questions that his ears ached. The deputy motioned toward one of the two big green chairs. DJ sat down, not understanding. The deputy turned to Alfred's father. "Where's the note?" Mr. Milford reached inside his shirt pocket and handed a piece of paper to the officer. He nodded and turned to DJ. "Read it, DJ." The note was shoved into the boy's unsteady hand. The deputy spoke to Mrs. Mulford. "Where's the milk carton?" DJ had just started to unfold the piece of paper, but he stopped and looked up in surprise. "Milk carton?" he asked. "Read," the deputy said firmly. "Mrs. Milford, could I have the carton, please?" She turned back to the kitchen. DJ forced his eyes down to the note. He recognized his best friend's neat handwriting. "Dear DJ," the note began, "I am leaving this note for you at my house since I cannot find you. I started for church, then I saw that man. He was alone. Then I remembered something I'd seen at breakfast, so I came home and checked. I was right. My mom will show you the milk carton, and you will understand. I have decided to help Cletus, so I've taken the dogs. Wish you were with me. Your friend, Alfred. P.S. If I have any trouble, you'll know where to look." Mrs. Milford returned from the kitchen with a carton of milk. DJ instantly recognized the picture on the side panel. Grandpa Dillon puffed through the front door, limping slightly and leaning on his cane. He didn't have stranger. Brother Paul followed the old man into the house. The pastor removed his cowboy hat and ducked his head so he wouldn't hit the top of the door jamb. "Say," Paul Stagg rumbled, walking up to take a closer look at the milk carton. That's the same picture that shook you up at my house, DJ." Alfred's father demanded, "What's going on here? Somebody better tell me, and it better be quick." The deputy held up both hands, palms outward. His voice was calm and firm. "Now, folks, I can understand you're all rightfully worked up, but I'll ask the questions if you don't mind. So, why don't all of you take a seat and let me handle this my way?" Reluctantly, Alfred's folks sat down on the sofa, their arms around each other for comfort. Grandpa took the other big green chair. Brother Paul eased into an old wooden rocker. He crossed his legs and tossed his hat over the toe of his cowboy boot. The deputy stood facing the boy. "DJ, you wouldn't say anything on the way over here. Now I think you'd better tell us everything and fast." Reluctantly, the boy did. An hour later, he was at home, dressing warmly to go help the officers rescue Alfred and Cletus. If they could beat the incoming storm, that is. DJ felt miserable. He also felt better. The terrible burden of keeping a secret was gone, but the fear of what might happen could have already happened to Alfred was still a heavy weight on DJ's mind. DJ dressed quickly, aware the day was fast slipping away. He prayed silently, thinking how troubles kept piling up. Brother Paul's sermon flashed through the boy's mind again. In all things give thanks. DJ shook his head. How can anyone give thanks when things keep getting worse? If anything happens to Alfred... His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the voices down the hallway. Through the closed bedroom door, DJ could hear the deputy still trying to reassure Sam, Dylan, Priscilla, and Two Mom. DJ's stepmother spoke loudly. I don't want him to go. Dad said firmly, he's got to go so he can show the officers where he and Alfred saw that Cletus boy and his kidnapper that night. DJ heard Corporal Brackett's answer. That's right. We've called in one of our special deputies, who's also a dog handler. If the dog can pick up Alfred's trail, we should be able to find him before the storm breaks. Hopefully, we'll rescue the other boy too. Two Mom's voice rushed on, clearly audible to the boy. The TV weatherman says the storm's coming down the Gulf of Alaska. Could be the earliest snow we've ever had, and the worst for so early in the year. I don't want DJ out in that weather. The deputy's voice was calm. I can understand your concerns, Mrs. Dillon, but look at it from the Milfords' point of view too. If their boy hasn't been stolen like that other kid, Cletus, then Alfred's likely to get caught in that storm unless we can find him fast. Mrs. Milford says Alfred's heaviest clothes are still in the closet. Guess he didn't know the storm was coming. Two Mom's voice was almost shrill. But surely you can't go down in that canyon at night. It's too dangerous, even without that terrible man down there with traps that could kill a person. Our department is used to working at night, Mrs. Dillon. We're all experienced in wilderness survival. Two Mom apparently wasn't listening. DJ heard her voice break. And stealing children. What's the world coming to anyway? Thousands of children disappear every year, Mrs. Dillon. If we're lucky, we'll recover one of those kids tonight. Hopefully, we'll also find Alfred. And then we'll catch this man so he won't steal any more kids. DJ laced his heavy leather boots and heard his father's voice down the hall. But if you fail, Arius, then Alfred will also be among the thousands of missing kids, right? The officer's reply was so low, DJ didn't hear. The boy stood up and hurried down the hallway. He wore his full-length thermal underwear under his heaviest pants and wool shirt. He also had on fleece-lined gloves, thick boot socks, a quilted parka, and an all-wool stocking cap. He carried his 5-cell flashlight. His half-sister ran toward him. She hugged DJ around the waist. Don't go, she pleaded, don't go. He spoke gently, patting her on the top of her untidy nest of hair. I've got to. Alfred would do the same for me. The deputy said, let's roll, DJ. I'll get my dog. Sorry, but Hero might mess up the scent. Our dog will try to follow. You'll have to leave Hero at home. DJ was disappointed, but he understood. 2 hours after dark, DJ led Brother Paul and 4 uniformed deputies with 1 scent dog down the steep trail to the bottom of Devil's Slide Canyon. Silently, they moved along a deer trail beside Mad River. Finally, DJ stopped. He flashed his light beam into the river. That's the boulder that almost hit us, he said. holding the beam steady so the men could see. Over there's the tree where that kid said he saw the white raccoon. DJ moved the light. Except for that thin streak, the whole area was black as the inside of a well. The cold wind had died at sunset, but before darkness, DJ had seen gray snow clouds slipping quietly across the western rim of the canyon. It was deadly quiet. That's the way it usually got just before snow started falling. Other flashlights flickered in the darkness beside the river. DJ could see shadowy outlines of the men who were to conduct the search. Besides Brother Paul, there were 2 backup deputies whose names DJ hadn't caught, and Deputy Hank Hubble. He was also one of Timbergold County's 3 dog handlers. DJ had met Deputy Humble and his Rottweiler scent dog during some experiences with the mad dog of Lobo Mountain. Deputy Humble seemed quite young, but he had the build of a weightlifter. His belt had a radio handset and a service revolver. Survival equipment was packed on his back. He had his dog, Razbataz, or Raz, on a stout leather leash. In the flashlight beams, DJ saw the dog had a broad head and deep brown eyes. Raz was about 2 feet high at the shoulders. He was powerfully built with short, coarse black hair. He had tan markings on his chest, muzzle, cheek, and both eyes. His tail was docked close to his body. The dog handler bent and unsnapped the leash. He spoke softly to the dog. "Okay, Raz, get to work." The dog first sniffed DJ's pant leg, then Brother Paul's. The Rottweiler moved on to smell the 2 backup deputies, and finally Corporal Brackett. DJ remembered that this was because the dog knew he was to find someone who wasn't present. In this case, that person was Alfred. Corporal Brackett spoke. "No smell of wood smoke, so the cabin may not be close by. Or it may be that there's just not enough breeze to carry the smell this way. Okay, Dan, I guess you better see what your dog can do." By the flashlight beam, DJ saw Deputy Humble reach into his coat pocket. He pulled out an undershirt. The dog handler explained. "Mrs. Milford said her son changed out of this today when he showered in the morning. Here, Raz, get a whiff of this, and let's find that kid." A moment after smelling the garment, the dog turned and began thrashing back and forth through the brush, looking for a scent to match the undergarment. DJ held his breath, hoping that Alfred had come this way. Raz gave a low woof. His stub tail rotated fast. Deputy Humble whispered, "He's got the scent. Come on, everybody, quietly." Corporal Brackett warned, "Remember to watch out for snares." DJ followed the dog and the men. He glanced anxiously at the sky. It was so perfectly blended with the top of the canyon, there was nothing visible except deep darkness. The boy shivered just as something wet touched his cheek. He automatically reached up to brush it off with the lip of his right glove. He turned his flashlight on. "Snowflake," he whispered. It was big and wet. Raz turned abruptly away from the deer trail. His handler spoke softly. "Raz is going into the brush. That means Alfred left the trail. We'd better find him fast. If it snows very much, the dog will lose the scent, and we'll be wasting our time going on." DJ groaned softly. Ugh. His eyes rolled upward to the gloomy sky. "Oh, please, not now. Haven't we got enough problems without the snow?" Another wet Big wet flake settled on the boy's eyebrows. He brushed it away. Another fell. DJ's light flickered upward. Dozens of huge flakes, a good inch across, were falling rapidly through the beam. Suddenly, the dog handler stopped and whispered, "Lights off, everybody. I smell smoke." Total blackness engulfed the group as the lights snapped off. DJ could hear the men sniffing the night air. Corporal Brackett whispered, "I smell it too. Has to be from a fireplace or a wood stove. That means the cabin must be close by. DJ, you stay here in case there's any trouble. We'll go ahead and see if we can take in the suspect without incident." The boy started to protest, but the dog handler suddenly slipped and fell. DJ heard him whisper, "I tripped over something. Let me check." DJ saw a pencil-thin beam of light as Deputy Hubble held his gloved hands across the lenses. By opening his fingers a little, the officer controlled the light. DJ caught a bit of reflected light in the brush. "Tripwire," the dog handler whispered excitedly. "Used to have them in Nam." That's short for Vietnam. DJ whispered to Colonel Brackett, "What's that mean?" The deputy was tense, looking around the darkness and straining to hear. After a moment, he answered the boy. "It's kind of a homemade alarm. A wire hidden in the brush accidentally got kicked. The other end of the wire is probably tied to tin cans or something that rattled in the man's cabin." DJ could barely swallow. "You mean he probably heard us and knows we're here?" "Yes, he might. Or he might think a bear or a deer tripped over his tripwire. We'll try to follow it to the cabin. You stay quiet." DJ whispered hoarsely, "Brother Paul, you going to stay with me? They might need me at the cabin, but you'll be okay, DJ." The big man's voice rumbled into silence. Brother Paul turned to follow the deputies and the dogs into the darkness. A moment later, DJ was alone. He had never seen such darkness. DJ's lips moved. "Lord, I'm scared." Brother Paul's words from the sermon seemed to answer, "In everything give thanks." The boy shook his head. "How can I do that? Everything keeps getting worse." The officers had been gone about 5 minutes when a slight sound from behind DJ made his head swerve. He saw the glow of a flashlight with a hand across the lens. A thin streak of light released from fingers hit DJ right in the eye. For a second, the boy thought it was one of the deputies, but it wasn't a friendly voice that growled out angrily, "So you told, did you? And you brought the law. Well, that's the last time you're ever going to do anything like that." DJ felt powerful hands grab his shoulders. The boy instinctively twisted sideways and rolled. His flashlight was knocked from his hand, and he was lost in the darkness. DJ leaped up. Desperately, he ran downhill through the brush straight toward the river, with the man chasing after him. And that is the end of tonight's story. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house, out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever happens, keep dreaming and keep a story in your heart. I'll be reading to you tomorrow.